Hello RPG fans and welcome back to my 6th challenge run of this channel. Told myself I'd only put in 1 to 2 hours on another Final Fantasy 1 playthrough while I'm busy working on Final Fantasy 13, and I found myself putting in a lot more time on Final Fantasy 1, so here's another video for you. I've decided to take a little bit different of an approach in terms of commentating for this playthrough, so do feel free to let me know how you like the commentating on this one compared to the other videos in the comments. That would be great. I would really quick like to thank you, the audience, for spending your time here and liking and subscribing to the channel, the videos, as well as just the overall community feedback on things that I didn't even know about the games that definitely would have made my playthroughs a lot easier, so thank you very much. And I hope to continuously receive your support. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into it. Can you 100% Final Fantasy 1 with only Thieves? And with that, there are some additional rules. We must use 4 Thieves, no New Game Plus, we cannot use any magic, and we cannot ascend our class from Thief to Ninja, and there's no glitches, exploits, hacks, mods, free or paid DLC if there is any. And the victory condition is beat the final storyline boss and get all 24 Steam achievements. So with the knowledge that I got from the first challenge run of Can You 100% Final Fantasy 1 with only monks, as well as the community feedback, I did feel the need to add in that rule of we cannot ascend the class, as I was not aware that that was optional on my first playthrough, so we went ahead and added it on this one. Alright, finally, 1 minute and 45 seconds later, I get to talk about the gameplay. So I felt like it was only appropriate to name the 4 Warriors of Light: Locke, Zidane, Shadow, and Edge. Of course, those all being the names from other Final Fantasy character thieves. So the first thing I do is spend about 15 minutes outside of town making sure that I gather enough gil to upgrade everyone's equipment inside town. Any remaining gil is going directly towards potions and antidotes. So already before we face Garland, Locke has already died twice. I have a feeling he is going to be our new Doom Train, mark my words. For those of you who don't know what that means, go ahead and watch the first Final Fantasy 1 video. Another 15 to 20 minutes are spent again outside of town grinding to make sure that we have enough gil to upgrade everyone's gear. And a big part of this is we can now have a body accessory as well as a new weapon, so this is extremely helpful. The pirates don't provide much of a challenge since we've upgraded all of our gear and most of them are able to get one-shotted. We get rewarded with the ship for a fight that they started, so I think all's good in the world. The monsters on the sea at this point I think offer more gil per battle than what the mobs do around Elfheim. They also give some really nice experience. The wolves around Elfheim don't really provide that much with how common they are. So I spent about another 10 to 15 minutes out on the sea gathering more gil, and then in Elfheim we're also able to upgrade everyone's weapon to a saber, which is a pretty big damage increase. I also did enough random battles to make sure that I can buy 99 potions as well as a healthy handful of antidotes because the marsh cave will be consuming them. Quite hefty. With most of the areas in the earlier Final Fantasies being pretty linear, you can go ahead and open up your map and you can see where the chests are in the area. So this guide's going to be assuming that we are getting all of the chests as we are able to. It's important to be fully healed and to quick save before opening this chest, as it can be very RNG heavy on if you're going to get a game over or not at this point. Zidane falls pretty early, so that's a decent damage loss, but with the high potion in our inventory, we're able to heal up Locke all the way, and then we're able to secure the victory. I try and make sure everyone's alive at the end so everyone can reap the experience reward. You can ignore the far south row of rooms. You need the Mystic Key, which we'll be getting soon. Now that we have the crown in our possession, we'll go ahead and exit the cave and run north, and we will come across the western keep. It's important to make sure that everyone is fully healed before talking to the king, as this will initiate a battle against Astos. Astos isn't too tough at this point in the game, but he can quickly decimate your party if you don't go in fully healed. Keep the auto attacks going and some potions if you need to, and then he will fall within seconds. Upon his defeat, we will receive the Crystal Eye, which we need to go and give to Master Matoya in the cave above Cornelia. Our courageous adventures don't go unrewarded, so Matoya gives us the Jolt Tonic, which we will take over to the healer who is in Castle Elfheim, and this will wake up the prince.
Hey, you're finally awake.
He conveniently gives us the Mystic Key, which is exactly what we need to open up these chests. Following the east side of the castle, this will lead us to a room that is north of us, locked by the Mystic Key. Next, I head over to Castle Cornelia, where we do the same thing. We'll follow the east side and then get the 2 rooms at the top for 6 more chests. Then we finish looting the first floor of the Chaos Shrine, and then we'll head all the way back over to the Western Keep, and we'll loot the building in the bottom left, and then we will finish out with looting the rest of the Marsh Cave on the 3rd floor. By now, with all of the random battles, you should have a healthy supply of restorative items, Phoenix Downs, as well as some money left over, so that way we can upgrade our gear again at the next city. Next, we'll take the boat over to the northwestmost dock and then head southwest to Mount D Cave. Be sure to collect all the treasure, and then when we're ready, we will give the nitro powder, which we already looted in Castle Cornelia, to the dwarf bro so he can have some fun with fireworks. And you guessed it, we'll go ahead and go and set sail through the canal, and then we will stop at our first port on the west side, Belmond. We'll make our way all the way to the southwest to the Earth Shrine, and this is again pretty linear, so go ahead and press square and loot all of the chests, and then towards the end we will eventually come across a pseudo boss, the vampire. Just as the battle starts, Locke almost gets doom trained, but then the vampire dies. I have a feeling that Doom Train is just gonna start becoming the meme of this channel. How great would that be? Obtaining the Star Ruby from the chest, it's time for us to run all the way outside of the cave and then head all the way west over to the Giant's Cave, where we give the Giant our Star Ruby. He munches it down like a protein bar, and that gives us access to the rest of the cave. Be sure to loot the room to the south, and then we will head north into the opening and swing our way around over to the Sage's Cave. Upon talking to the Sage, he then gives us the Earth Rod, which will then be used all the way back in the Earth Cave. So, you guessed it, let's walk on back. Be sure you're fully healed and quick save before interacting with the orb. Alright, boss fight time. So the Lich is, or has the potential to be, a very tough boss depending on what he does. So the attacks themselves don't really do a whole lot. It's when he uses his slow magic on us that can really be the hardest thing. So essentially what that's going to do is drastically reduce our damage. So in my previous playthrough, my monks, they were hitting for 1 damage. And if they crit, it would be, I think, like 20 to 40 damage. It's really, really bad. When I was fighting him right here, we go almost the entire fight without him ever casting slow. He only casts slow when there's about 2 rounds left of his health bar, which was just absolutely awesome. And since I knew that he was close to being dead, I didn't bother letting the characters who had slow die off, so that way I can res them. There was miraculously just 1 character who didn't get slowed, so they were my main damage dealer to finish off the Lich. Go ahead and heal up if needed, and then we can use the teleporter just north of the crystal to go ahead and get on out of here. Next up is Crescent Lake. Crescent Lake is a really big area in terms of experience boost that you're able to gain from the previous section, so it's definitely advisable if you're getting hit pretty hard to level up here and start building up your max HP pool. I make sure to try and refill on my recovery items, and then next we are over to the Sages. The Sage at roughly the 5 o'clock position is the only one that you need to talk to. You don't need to talk to anyone else. With the canoe tucked away in our magical pocket, we go ahead and set sail over to the volcano, and the volcano again is pretty linear. However, the random battles are aplenty. You should have no problem leveling up a lot in this place. And just like before, go ahead and recover, quick save, and then engage the boss fight. This will be against Marilith. Marilith has 2 main outputs of damage. One is Fire, which is an AoE and hits all party members. The other one is a very heavy physical attack that hits for about 270 a hit. And with my HP pool of less than 400, either I heal that character and they can potentially live, or they just straight up get doom trained, as Edge is finding out the hard way. At this point in the game, potions are only used for recovering in dungeons while trying to travel to the boss. They should never be used in battle. That's what high potions are for. High potions are the best healing that we're ever going to be able to do throughout this playthrough, with the exception of an X potion and 3 elixirs. So depending on how you want to tackle these boss fights, you could have 1, 2, or maybe even 3 characters spam high potions every turn. For me, I usually try and stick to 1 to 2 depending on what the boss fight is later down the road. Towards the end of this fight with Marilith, I was kind of panicking a little bit and was using a lot more people to try and heal. As you can see right here, I'm just down to Shadow and I'm desperately trying to res more people, but unfortunately I wasn't able to make it and we die. Taking into account what we learned on the first fight with Marilith, we don't have just one person start to heal. We actually use everyone to start heal, really depending on what she does. Her physical attacks that target single players are probably the most deadly, and then followed by a Phyra. Because what that means is when the physical attack does almost 300 damage, a high potion's only going to account for half of that. And then with a Phyra coming the next turn, that's an AoE onto everyone, so I'm already behind the healing curve. And of course, with being behind the healing curve, it means I'm behind the damage curve because I'm spending my turns healing instead of doing damage. And so cutting most of this fight out and fast forwarding to the end, we do have a second game over against Marilith. After the second wipe, I was considering leveling up some more, but I felt like she was almost close to dying, so I decided to give it a third try. This third attempt was just all over the place. Locke died 6 times on this fight. So yeah, that's a lot of downtime on damage, which also means that I'm spending most of my turns using Phoenix Downs and high potions. So I think I got pretty lucky in terms of RNG on what Marilith was using in terms of attacking me. Towards the second half of the fight, Marilith was using a lot of blinding effects, which gave me a lot of time to recover for my party, and this fight took about 9.5 minutes. Next up is the ice cave just north of the volcano, and it can be reached via canoe. You'll proceed throughout the ice cave until you reach this room. Do not step on the cracks yet. Get the chest first and then step on the crack, but don't fall and break your back. There's only 2 goals here. One is to collect every chest and the other one is to collect the levy stone. Now we'll head back onto the boat for our minigame. By holding the confirm or accept key and then pressing cancel or back 55 times will bring you to this puzzle for the achievement. We'll bring the levy stone over to the desert to the south of this continent, and lo and behold, we now have our flying Mach 2 airship. With the airship, we will now go ahead and head over to Gaia, which is a really awesome place for 1, more experienced mobs, 2, to upgrade all of your equipment, and if you are using any magic casters, you can go ahead and buy magic here as well. This place also has an item store in the very north of the town. There's 2 goals for the Citadel. One is to open up all the chests, and the second one is in the very final chest, we will need the rat's tail to complete the 100% achievements. We'll need to eliminate the mob in front of the throne in order to use the throne to teleport all the way back to the start. You should have more than 40,000 gil for completing the Citadel. So next we will head over to the desert in the upper left hand corner of the map and walk into the camp and buy the bottled ferry for 40,000 gil. We'll go ahead and stop by all the dragon caves here, and one of them will lead us to B2, where we will turn in the rat's tail and ascend our class. I'm just kidding. That's against the rules. Do be sure to enter in all of them and loot all the chests though, and then we will make our way over to Gaia, where the bottled ferry will automatically be released. Proceed north through the forest path and talk to the ferry, and they will give us the Oxyel, which will allow us to breathe underwater. Next up is the waterfall cavern, which can be entered in via canoe. At the very end, we'll need to loot all the chests and talk to the golem, and the golem will give us the warp stone, which we will need to access the flying fortress. We'll make our way over to Onrak, which is the town just to the southeast of the waterfall, and we'll enter in the barrel in the far east side of the city. To enter the barrel, this will take the Oxyel that we got from the ferry. We'll then arrive at the Sunken Shrine, and in my opinion, the Sunken Shrine has the second best music in the entire game. First, of course, being the Chaos Shrine. If you think differently, feel free to let me know in the comments. Be sure to heal up and then quick save, and then it is on to our next shrine boss, the Kraken. The Kraken has some pretty high physical damage, and the fight immediately starts off with our characters getting utterly clapped. Shadow gets 1-tapped, and we are not in a good spot. So I'm not exactly sure what the healing requirement is for this fight starting off, but I quickly noticed that just having one person throwing out high potions isn't going to be enough. So I then start to use Edge to start healing everyone as well, and this seems to be going okay. I'm able to recover quite a bit while still using Locke and sometimes Zidane to continuously deal damage. Now, because of the way the optimal equipment works, usually Locke is always going to have the best gear equipped, so I'll always want him attacking every single turn and having everyone else support him if needed. The Kraken does have 1800 HP, which isn't really that much, but it is noticeable. My non-crits are only hitting for about 60 damage on Locke, and the crits are hitting at maybe around a little over 100, I think. So it is going to be taking about 10 or 11 rounds for the Kraken to die, but I do keep up my high potions and rezzing people when needed, and it's really awesome that the Kraken doesn't really have a dangerous AoE that can just AoE my entire party down. So after a few minutes, we do fell this foe. This was a 8-minute fight. Deja vu, we go ahead and use the teleporter and escape. Now that we have the Rosetta Stone from the Sunken Shrine, we next need to head over to Melmond and talk to the blonde-haired scholar person up in the top right, Une, and he will teach us the language of Luciferian. Luciferian is like the language of the angels, and so we will go ahead and head over to Lufenia via airship. It is quite a walk south, but we will get there. I feel like they could have done a lot more with this town other than just have one NPC give us a key item that we need to enter the Mystic Tower. I really feel like they could have done a lot more with this town. We now have the chime in our inventory. It sounds like a pretty good investment. Yes? No? Alright, moving on. The chime will allow us to enter in the Mystic Tower that is in the desert. So from here, we'll go ahead and restock our recovery items, make sure we're fully prepared, be sure to hard save it outside of the tower, and then we will head in. There's a decent bit of chests that we'll want to get in here, and this is an amazing place to level up if you want to spend some time here. Near the top, you can go ahead and view the dome, and it will show you a convergence point of where all the shrines are pointing to. This is not required. I actually completely skipped this on the first time that I played the Pixel Remastered, so this is kind of a cool little scene. I also didn't know about investigating this tile. Neat little thing. Recover and quick save before engaging in the battle with Tiamat. I'm going to cut a lot of this footage out because this was a 15-minute fight. I'm a really big fan of Tiamat's pixel art in this Pixel Remastered. He looks really cool. All of his colors look really nice. But what's not really nice is how much damage he does. This dude hits like a tank. His AoE fire does about 130 damage, and it's about double that for our fourth character, Shadow. It's extremely hard to keep him up in the boss fights moving forward, so he's almost strictly on heal duty. Oh, and would you look at that? He's got Thundara too? Sure, let's just go ahead and take another 150 damage off of all of our characters and double that for Shadow. Sure, I can deal with it. Ugh, dragons, I swear, dude, they always think they're just the coolest things on the earth doing all this damage and everything. With all the AoE damage coming out, I'm trying to have everyone on high potions before I can take any more AoE. And then, oh my god, look at that. Shadow just got doom trained again. For all these fights moving forward, if I were to res Shadow, he needs to get 2 turns off for it to be worth the Phoenix down. Of course, by any other character using the Phoenix down, they could have just themselves used a high potion. And so the second turn that Shadow is alive really when he has the added value of an additional high potion. I hope that makes sense.
That's a lot of damage.
After keeping up the high potions and Phoenix downs on what felt like forever, Tiamat finally falls. With the 4th Crystal Beast down, we will go ahead and warp out and then head over to Mount D and talk to the dwarf. This dwarf will take the adamantite that we got in the Sky Fortress and turn it into the Excalibur. Nice, finally an upgraded weapon. It has been so long. Oh. I mean, it's alright, I didn't want an upgraded weapon anyway. So at this point in the game, I am a little stuck in between 2 places on what I want to do. So I decided to go over to the Chaos Shrine, gain a couple levels, and then decide, you know what, since I'm going to be grinding anyway, let's go ahead and try and fight the War Machine over in the Sky Fortress. So I encounter the War Machine after about 30 minutes, and he face plants all of my characters just straight into the floor. There was no shot that I was destroying that thing. So I look up a guide on where all the weapons are, and so I head back over to the Sunken Shrine and start grinding white sharks, and this battle gives me 2 worm killers, which is 2 upgrades. I head back to town to make sure that the pirate is still staying out of trouble, and it looks like he is. I spent a couple more hours trying to find the war machine, and I ran through all of my potions and high potions. So I went out, I refilled, and then I went back. And the amount of black flans that I've killed just makes me sick. If I ever have to see another one of these things, it will be way too soon. 100% with white mages. Hey, no, you be quiet back there. So after gaining a whole lot of levels, we try and fight the Warmech again. And it doesn't really go that well. He's still hitting me for about 270 per physical and still restoring 100 HP per turn. And I'm still not able to keep up the healing with high potions, even using 2 characters at a time. And he completely shuts down Locke again with a 400 physical damage hit. And so fast forwarding a whole bunch of minutes and dead a second time to Warmech. At this point, I was feeling a little saddened, not really frustrated, but just kind of saddened because the amount of damage this thing's doing, it's really making me wonder if he's killable. But at the same time, I could just level up more and give it another try. And then I noticed that there is the Masamune weapon that I still have to get. So this is where we start progressing through the Chaos Shrine. And these Death Eyes apparently have a 1% chance to drop an elixir. Alright, so a rematch against the stronger Lich with about 3 times more HP. So with Locke, I start using the Defender and Giant's Gloves combo, same with Zidane, and then I have Invisora on Edge being used. Throughout here, we still keep Shadow using high potions, and I bring in a second healer if needed. When the Lich use stopped, it only affected 1 person, which was pretty good from my standpoint. I continue to use Locke every single turn on attacking, and he's doing 100 plus damage with or without crits, so it's pretty steady. The Lich isn't really able to do anything to me right now. I don't know if this is RNG or just because of the Invisora that I used, but I am going to Pound Town right now. This is an awesome rematch and it's totally going my way. Next up is Marilith. So a lot of the same strategies that we used on Lich we are going to be using here. And for some reason, Marilith as well is just melting like butter. She's hardly able to do any damage to us, so we're being able to deal damage to her with more than just Locke, which is pretty nice. So we're essentially having double DPS on her. Just using high potions as needed. There's really nothing else that made this fight worrisome, so she falls within a couple minutes. Fighting the Kraken is exactly like it was the first time. He just does a little bit of AoE, which doesn't hit us hard at all, like 80 to 100. And other than that, his physical attacks don't really do that much. This fight was super easy, and I was actually kind of worried going into this because usually the bosses are getting progressively harder and they hit progressively harder. But the Kraken was ideally just a complete pushover. He falls in a couple minutes. With the Masamune, we now equip it on Locke, and we are actually able to do damage. This doubles his damage output. So that also means that his weapon can now go to another character. So right here, I was thinking to myself, well, I could go and try and kill the War Machine now, or we could just go to Tiamat. And I figured, let's just go to Tiamat since I'm already on a boss killing streak. So with the same combos as before, Locke is now hitting for 600 plus damage, and Tiamat goes down quicker than a knife through butter. GG no re, Tiamat. Fighting Tiamat kind of gave me a lot of motivation for realizing that, hey, I might actually be able to complete this run. So what do? I go straight to Garland after Tiamat. So I start preparing the items on what I want everyone to use with the Defender, the Giant's Gloves, the Invisora, and then his very first turn, he uses slow on my damage dealer Locke. This is already a game over. Talk about getting wrecked. I'm just going to fast forward this here to the death. I wipe a second time on Garland and decide I need to start leveling up a lot more, so I head back over to the Sky Fortress and I encounter the Warmech, you guessed it, a third time. The Warmech's damage output is really hard to deal with until you beat the game, so I was kind of thinking to myself, when you beat Garland, you have the option to save the game, and then it reloads right before the Chaos Shrine, and at that point, you still have your X potion and your elixirs, and I was going to need them in order to be able to beat Warmech. Now, keep in mind, I'm still a thief. I'm not a ninja. So my access to weapons and armor is drastically reduced, and my stats aren't anywhere near as good. My damage is far lower than what it should be. This is all around a very hard and difficult playthrough. So after leveling up some more at level 84, I finally decide, let's go and try and beat Garland again, because I'm going to need to be higher level than what I was with my monks, because my monks were ascended, the thieves are not, so it only seems natural I would need to be higher level. And it was already difficult in the previous times with using the X potion and elixirs, so here we go. So I start selecting the items that everyone's going to use, and Chaos immediately starts off with healing himself. And here I'm thinking, wow, this is really awesome. He already has a extremely low chance to heal himself, so he's probably not going to use it throughout the rest of the fight, right? Right? He then starts to proceed with a big tidal wave of Tsunami, which hits for a little over 200 per, and then he starts off with another AoE of Blaze for 160. And also keep in mind, Shadow's taking basically double damage from every single attack, and it's really hard to try and keep him up, so he's just on perm heal bot. My strategy here is to have at least one attacker, possibly two, so Locke is always going to be in attack mode, dealing the most damage because he has the Masamune weapon. So he's always going to be doing at least twice as much damage as everyone else, even with crits. I decided that I'm going to be using 3 people mostly for high potions, trying to keep Locke up is priority, and I'll use a X potion or elixir if need be. Thinking back, it's kind of crazy how much these strategies differ from the monks to the thieves. With the monks, there wasn't any healing at all other than the X potion and the elixirs. Whereas with the thieves, I'm actually using 2 to 3 people to spam high potions while only one person does the damage. I didn't actually think this kind of strategy would vary that different between having 4 of one class, but this is a really different strategy. From here on for the fight, I try not to res Shadow as he's just a liability at this point, taking double damage. He needs like 2 turns to recover from any single one of Chaos's AoEs. It's just really, really hard. So if I think that luck is on my side, I'll res him and hopefully he'll get an attack off or a high potion off or something, but most of the time he does stay dead for turns on end. As the fight progresses, I start to fall farther and farther behind on healing, and I really don't want to be using my elixirs unless someone is in critical HP, as it might be the only thing that's stopping me from killing this boss. So at this point in the fight, I feel like I'm getting a little bit desperate for healing, so I try and bring Shadow back up once or twice in quick succession, so that way he can hopefully get a high potion off. And right here, I am extremely close to game over. He is just AoEing my party down extremely hard, so I finally pop an elixir on Locke, and I start to try and recover everyone else. It was pretty nice when he used Fyriga. It allows me some decent time to try and heal up because it doesn't do very much damage at all. Blaze, on the other hand, does some damage. I know this fight's been dragging on a while, and I can just feel my adrenaline and my blood pumping. I know that he's got to be close to dying, so I continue pressing the attack with Locke and trying my hardest to be smart about who I'm going to be targeting with my high potions. With the X potion already being used and all the elixirs being used earlier in the fight, it's really hard to tell if I'm going to be able to kill Chaos this time or not. Locke drops to 65 HP, and then I heal him just once, and he manages to AoE the group instead of physical attacking Locke. It's at this point when Locke's at 700 and everyone else is at 450 that I really think I have a real shot at killing Chaos. And then he finally falls with a last-ditched effort. Can we all take a moment to just think about how crazy tuned Chaos is on these kinds of challenge runs? But we're not done quite yet. So remember earlier when I said that when you save the game and then you loaded it, you appear outside of the Chaos Shrine? So we now have our elixirs intact, so we go ahead and encounter the Warmech again. Oddly enough, it only took us about 3 or 4 minutes to face him for a 4th time when we were on our way back up there. So he falls extremely quickly, with Locke just dealing out a ton of damage, and it felt so good to use my elixirs and X potions to try and keep everyone alive, and then the Warmech just dies. And I didn't even have to use an elixir, it was more of just like a flex. But yeah, the War Machine falls. And we still have one more achievement. In order to do the 100% run, we actually have to ascend the classes. So we go to Bahamut, we turn in the Rat's Tail, and this is our last achievement to unlock the 24 out of 24. GG. This was a really fun run. This was also really challenging. I had to spend a lot more time grinding than what I did on the monks. Although in all fairness, the monks did go to black belt. So I might redo the monk playthrough at some point, and it would most likely be just as hard as the Thieves. Maybe easier. I'm not really sure. Maybe someone can chime in. But that was a really, really fun run. I'm really glad that I decided to do the Thieves. I also really hope you guys enjoyed the different way that I commentated on this video compared to my other challenge runs. I feel like it's a lot more natural for me to commentate the way I did through this playthrough instead of trying to describe everything that I'm doing, including the storyline. I felt like it was getting a little bit much. I would like to know your thoughts in the comments below. If you would like to get challenge run updates, joining my Discord is the perfect place for it. I also have a post in my community for YouTube, as well as a specific channel in my Discord for challenge run ideas, where you can pitch a game to me with or without a rule set. It would be kind of nice to know what kind of rules you would like me to follow, especially if I haven't even played the game before. But do feel free to check the description below for previous challenge runs, as well as my socials. 100% with white mages. Hey, for the last time, you shut up back there. If you're still here after almost 32 minutes, thank you very much for spending some time of your day here and watching. Can you 100% Final Fantasy I using only Thieves? And yes, you can. I do feel like it does rely on some RNG as to how hard your main DPSer gets damaged and how quickly you use the elixirs and the X potion. If you're able to distribute those out throughout a longer fight, or the RNG isn't as heavy on your main DPS character, then yeah, of course you'd have an easier time. From my perspective, I think I had a fairly difficult time with this, to be honest. But I'm really glad I was able to showcase this for everyone, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. You all have been absolutely insane on the support for my channel, and I am truly, truly grateful to each and every one of you who has watched the video, as well as partaken in liking and subscribing, as well as commenting. I really appreciate it. So next on the horizon, I am still proceeding through my Final Fantasy 13 run. To my knowledge, no one has done the rules that I've done with what I'm trying to do. I don't even know if it's possible, but I am damn well sure going to find out. It's going to be really, really hard though. Hope you fellow RPG enjoyers have a good one, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.